do you have a last minute changes or the one we still have one, Steph, that's.
We just wanted to ensure that all the members were recognized, which you've done, and that Patrick includes a verbal update on the West Side MOU discussion, which I think he will because he did for Blue Water.
Great.
And then okay, that's all.
Okay. And then the next item then is the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, of which was from December of 2019. 2020, sorry, Allison. And obviously Allison and I were the only ones that were attending that are members of the committee.
And I can't vote, so.
I did go through it and I didn't see any changes. The only minor item is Jim Taylor wasn't actually a member at that time, but he did obviously speak quite a bit during the meeting. And so at that time, it was just myself and Patricia North that were resident members. That's the only change I had.
So I applied that change, and then you also mentioned about the fire protection being perception.
That's right. Which item was that?
Pardon?
On the discussion under fire protection.
So I made that change as well.
There was a comment that it seemed to indicate that the meeting felt that protection wasn't adequate, and then I suggested to be altered to suggest that some members of the public had suggested that. So that's been altered as well.
Okay, so that's there, but what about Jim Taylor is still up there as an attendee as a committee member?
I've applied these this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to another draft.
Okay, are we ready to have a motion to accept the minutes?
You can
One
move
of our
it.
new committee members could make that motion, even though they have no idea if the minutes are correct or not. Thanks, Graham. And
Sure.
I second that motion.
Al would second it. Thank you. All in favor? Yeah, great. Okay, then we've got that underway. Then now we've got to open it wide open for all our public to make comments.
There's no one from the public.
So seeing no one from the public at this point, there's a question period at the end, so they have another chance. So we would close the section on public comments and then move to introductions and elections. So I would turn it over to Steph. Do you want to introduce Kristen Watson, since I actually haven't met her yet?
Okay. So Kristen Watson was our CFO 4 years ago at Bowen Municipality, and she went forth to North Vancouver School District to get a lot of more experience in many different areas, and then came back here to whip us into shape. Kristen?
Hi, thank you. That was a really warm and lovely introduction, Steph. That was so nice. Yep. So
Happy to have her back.
John, we met, not in person, of course, but we met at our finance committee meeting on March 7th.
That's correct. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not in person though.
That's right.
I think there are moving back to in-person meetings at some point next month, I heard.
Well, for council, definitely. We're not sure about the committees yet, because
Right.
I think it's worked well in getting committee members in busy schedules. being
Yeah,
able to utilize
it
them.
allows for wider participation.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
And the other person
From
that's here, John,
Australia.
is Patrick Graham, which is our director of engineering and operations. Or what is your title, Patrick?
Yeah, Director of Engineering, that's the title.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Before Patrick gets going, item 4.2 is elections of the chair and the vice chair of this committee. Is there any suggestions of who should be the chair? If we're not sure, I'd be willing to continue, and then we could pick a victim to be the vice chair.
All right. Well, one of you fellows needs to nominate John.
Okay,
Nominate John?
I nominate John.
Okay,
Unanimous.
thanks, Graham.
Are there any other nominations?
How about a nomination for vice chair? Who wants to jump in?
Well, I'll do vice chair if no one else is going to do it. So
It looks good.
Graham?
not sure I'll get myself into, but
Nothing.
Sorry, was that Al that said that?
It
Graham.
was.
Graham.
Oh,
Yeah.
Graham. Oh, great, Graham.
Well, that was
Sorry, I was
Graham.
looking at the wrong screen. So thank you, Graham. Okay, so we have myself nominated for chair and Graham for vice chair. Are there any other people wanting to throw in their hat? Hearing none, would we like to then vote on that?
Maybe Al can move it.
Sorry. Yeah, Al, could you move that?
I would move it forward for chair.
Okay.
All in favor?
Okay.
And then the same for vice chair?
You can do that, John. You've just been reelected as chair.
That's true. Okay, I would move that Graham Pitches be the vice chair.
Seconder.
Al seconded that. And all in favor?
Graham, you didn't put your hand up.
Yeah, it's easier to hold your hand up than to do the electronic hand because I can't always see it. Yeah. In the bigger meetings, the electronic hands are great. Okay, then we've then moved on to Public Works, and now it's Patrick's turn to give us an update on things. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, hi, everybody. There really hasn't been a lot of issues with Bowen Bay water system. The water quality reports that are submitted to Coastal Health haven't really flagged anything. There's plenty of supply in the wells. The main deficiency is the small storage and undersized main. So there isn't fire protection. And from previous discussions that we've had, exploring willingness to pay for that level of service, it doesn't seem to be a priority for this community. What we do have a priority to address is in the blue water system, the supply demand shortfall. We've done a bunch of work looking at the aquifers in this area and the wells in Bowen Bay, King Edward Bay, and Blue Water. We've done some consultation with the three water systems. We had a joint meeting with the three committees and public as well in early 2021. And then, it became clear that the most efficient and cost-effective option would be to upgrade the Bowen Bay wells to connect those wells to the King Edward Bay reservoir, and that there would be enough water for everybody, essentially. And that led to embarking on a process to develop a memorandum of understanding between the three systems. And John and the other two system chairs and myself and Liam had a series of meetings. Things stalled on that front last fall, and we just had a meeting with Blue Water, and they're really needing us to go through, because the capital implications are significant. They're going to need us to go through with them, what what the costs and financing options are, and they may want to revisit some of the options that were explored with the urban systems studies that were done in 2020. It involves Bowen Bay because it's the 3 wells in Bowen Bay are the most productive, and they produce, or they're capable of yielding far more than what this community uses or needs. And we obviously haven't gotten to the point of having a time frame or even financing approach of how that would move forward. But there's an imminent need that needs to be addressed. And so it's something that we need to advance this year. Yeah, I don't really have any, anything else on the public works front to bring up.
Just a question, Paul. Sorry, apologies, guys. This is my first meeting, so apologies if all has been covered. But would the residents of Bowen Bay be required to pay for the linkage up to King Edward Bay and to Blue Water?
Well, there's an expectation that benefiting, and this is sort of one of the guiding principles that we developed in our MOU, is that the essentially benefiting properties pay for infrastructure work. The primary beneficiary of all this would be the Blue Water system. There is some benefit to the Bowen Bay system in that you've now got sort of 3 well pumps that are have a certain service life left, and they're going to be replaced with brand new pumps. So there's an improved asset value there. There's also access to a reservoir that has adequate storage capacity to provide fire flows for fire protection. That benefit doesn't really get realized by the system until the mains are upgraded. So I think there's some benefit there to Bowen Bay. The majority of the cost would be Blue Water, and or grant funding if we can achieve grant funding. But I think there's some X percent that would be attributable to Bowen Bay, and that's still to be determined, to be resolved.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right.
Thanks so much.
I think we could, Patrick, I probably could share the draft MOU with the other committee members just to bring them up to speed where we left off. We had 13 meetings actually with the, not all of them were attended by all 3, but there was, in addition to the March 3rd meeting, that was a joint meeting of the boards of the 3 water systems. We had subsequently, I think for my diary, I found 13 entries of different meetings. So we certainly gave it a really good try. And, but to Graham's question, I could probably share the draft MOU where it was left off, and it would show sort of the essence that we were thinking at the time, but it's of course doesn't mean that it would be anywhere near the final MOU. I think, as Patrick has said, there's work to be done with the Blue Water people in terms of looking at capital expenditures in the future and various aspects. So unless there's an objection from the committee, I don't see, I would share that with the other members of the committee who weren't, I think Terrence got a draft.
Yes.
Because Terrence was a member last October, but we didn't share it with the 2 new members yet. So that would help you, Graham, in that. And perhaps, I don't think so the order, it wouldn't be called a local area committee meeting, but perhaps the 3 of us could even meet just casually and just review the draft, and I could take questions just to bring everyone up to speed.
Sure.
Okay.
Be helpful. Yeah.
Great, good. and we could drink some lovely Bowen Bay water at the same time. Okay.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
In terms of financing going forward, is there benefit to King Edward as well from this upgrade?
There's, well, Patrick can, what do you think, Patrick? How would you answer that one?
I mean, there's some benefit, again, it's sort of marginal benefit compared to the primary beneficiaries in Blue Water. There's a substantially more resilient supply, if we have, the Bowen Bay wells feeding into the King Edward Bay Reservoir, which really benefits everybody.
Okay, any other questions?
I just I don't really sort of keep on belaboring this point, but the like say if obviously we have a mix of long-term residents, short-term residents, we call ourselves sort of fair weather owners, new residents as well too. But when say I was to buy a place in Blue Water, right? Am I made aware of the water situation by the realtor, or are there any sort of protections around there? Or are there a lot of people moving there who don't quite fully understand the water situation?
I could answer that since, I guess we're all involved a bit in real estate, but I mean, in theory, there's a disclosure statement, but I don't think there's any, at any time, any requirement to disclose that Blue Water has challenges at times because, of course, the last 2 years, they've actually had adequate water. So to be able to tell a prospective purchaser, that you may not have enough water, frankly, that could happen to any water system in Bowen Island because, there could be a landslide or earthquake and the ground conditions can change dramatically. So I believe there's no requirement to disclose such things. Okay. Any other questions?
Actually, John, I have a question.
Sure.
In King Edward Bay and Blue Water, it's just more of a general question from my interest. They have fire hydrants, don't they?
No, only King Edward Bay has the 6-inch hydrants that your beautiful trucks can hook up to.
Okay. So, yeah. So is there, from a pressure point of view, how much of that pressure to King Edward Bay, for example, is derived from a source through Bowen Bay?
Well, I can answer that because I think we've all been, right now, there's no actual active interconnection between Bowen Bay and King Edward. The valve hasn't been turned.
Okay.
So if there's a fire and a huge long fire, someone could run up and turn the valve, I suppose. But there's no active connection, but there is an active connection between Blue Water and King Edward Bay.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then thank you, Patrick. We'll move on next to the fun stuff, the finance and the draft 5-year plan. Kristen, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I will share my screen with you. Okay. There we go. So I'm showing the same slide at the beginning of Blue Water and King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay's presentation. Just to remind you, just all 3 systems have the exact same harmonized rate structure. So all 3 systems, if you're a connected property, you have $960 annual charge plus metered overuse charges beyond 7,200 gallons, imperial gallons per month. And that's measured in the summer from June 1st to September 30th. And then all unconnected properties pay a flat rate of $600 per year. So in Bowen Bay, you have 61 properties, 1 is unconnected and 60 are connected. The total overuse revenue charged in Bowen Bay last year in 2021 was 7,302. And that's about 11% of your total revenue is coming from metered rates. We're putting the same revenue proposal in front of all 3 water districts this year. And we're looking to increase revenues in each system by 13.4%. So the approved budget in last year was 58.5, and we'd like to set the target rate this year, or the target revenue requirement, at 66,340. And that's 13.4% higher than the prior year budget. Looking at the years beyond 2022, we've put in rate increases ranging from 10.81% to 12.12%. So what that would look like for Bowen Bay would that the revenue requirement starts at 74,381 in year 2, and it would grow to just over 100,000 in the 5th year. We are recommending that we put annual increases in at least 10 to 12% each year, and that is just to pay for the capital that we're putting in as nominal capital expenditures that are likely going to be put there to deal with equipment breakdowns or any kind of equipment failures, that kind of thing. So all 3 systems, we're looking across the board, 13.4 the first year, and then ranging from 12 to 10.87 by the 5th year. We're assuming that you will continue to collect about 13% of your revenue from the metered properties and 87% from the unmetered properties. And what that would look like as an annual rate with those annual increases going up, say would look about $972 in the first year, climbing to almost $1,500 in the end of year 5. I'll just take a look to walk you through the expenses. Labor costs are estimated to be about $22,886. Last year, we spent $24,796, but we did have some one-time non-recurring costs that were they were included as part of the collective agreement implementation with all of the outside workers. They're all unionized now. So we have a new collective agreement that's in place. It expires in December, and we'll be going back to the bargaining table come the end of the year. We are experiencing some real cost pressures on our services and supplies. There's, of course, we all know all about the supply chain delays, but in here we have fuel and all of those sorts of things that tend to attract year-over-year increases that are higher than just the 2% kind of thing. We're putting an extra cost provision in there for consulting in case Patrick needs to reach out to an external consultant for some reports. And going out for the remaining 4 of the 5 years, we've just added a provision in growth for expenses of an inflationary factor of 2%. In the capital side of things, we've put in, just as I mentioned, just a provision for equipment breakdown or repair of $10,000. There's a line item in there. I'm calling it FlowWorks, but what it is sorry about that, is a meter optimization assessment. So those meters in Bowen Bay are very old, and looking at some kind of meter replacement program to replace those meters and improve efficiencies around going and reading them and getting more immediate data would be something that we're looking at doing. And of course, we need to advance our asset management plan, and we've put $3,000 in the budget in order to move forward with those asset management initiatives. Same for the remaining 4 years in the long-term plan. We've just put in an allocation for equipment breakdowns. Patrick didn't have any large significant capital projects under contemplation for Bowen Bay at the moment. And then looking how that would translate into the fund balances for Bowen Bay. At the end of 2021, there are 143,000 in Bowen Bay's surplus and reserve accounts. And if we kind of follow that flow through all the way through the 5-year plan, it would progress to incremental contributions up to about 215,704. We do believe that that is not aggressive enough. We do believe that we need to increase rates at a higher rate and continue to put money away into savings. But that is, it's going to be sort of informed by the work that's going to be done on the asset management plan. I think when we get that information back, these numbers will be a lot more realistic and a lot more well supported. So our next steps in the financial approval process, we're looking to have a recommendation from this committee tonight in order to approve the 5-year financial plan. And the next steps is that we need to meet with a joint meeting with King Edward Bay and with Blue Water Park to establish the new user rate. So you'll notice I didn't bring a proposed rate bylaw. It's not that I'm not recommending that we don't change the rate. If we want to collect additional revenue, we're going to have to increase the rates. But because this is we have these harmonized rates across all 3 districts, I don't think it makes any sense to talk about rates just in isolation. I think that would best be done at a joint meeting of the 3 committees. So we will be looking to schedule a subsequent follow-up meeting very soon where we're going to discuss rates and what they should be looking like. And I would actually like to just talk to the committee to find out a little bit about what direction there is from the committee to what direction the committee wants to move in as far as rates. I will share with you that the Blue Water Park Committee is very keen to move towards a more a rate that is much more focused on metered rate consumption and charging users by the amount of water used. So I wanted to bring that to the committee and just get a sense of what your thoughts were on that. And also take any questions about the financial plan if you had any.
Thank you, Kristen. I can lead off. I guess I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This notion that the rates of Blue Water and King Edward and Bowen Bay should be the same. Where did this come? Is it enshrined in our letters patent or whatever it is that created our? So
it goes back really to when it goes back to when King Edward Bay subdivision was happening. And there was a lot of keenness to actually try and put the 3 systems together at that point in time. And so there was at least agreement that because there was going to be some sharing of the King Edward Bay water in their reservoir, et cetera, from that we would structure everybody's minimum usage and basic fee rates the same. And we were also trying and get the structure of the fee rates similar all across the systems, which makes it easier for Kristen for billing.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, because certainly through the MOU discussions, I mean, it became very clear that Blue Water has a different approach to rates than King Edward and Bowen Bay. And the reason being is King Edward and Bowen Bay have adequate water to meet our 7,200 gallon per month allotment during the summer months. And we haven't been persuaded that we don't by engineering, in the various reports. And whereas Blue Water, of course, realizes that they have an issue, and one of their approaches is to say, okay, we will, try and really reduce everyone's consumption, so therefore it's more palatable to join King Edward and Bowen Bay. But certainly King Edward and Bowen Bay didn't agree with that approach. So I'm not sure we would feel the need for a joint meeting. That it's pretty clear. We certainly made it clear in our discussions that we don't need to have the same rates as Blue Water. Blue Water has the big issue And, there are some hope of curing the blue water issues by, there may be some extra development lands that come in play, and they may be another well, we don't know. The other thing that we're, exploring or trying to figure out with blue water, which they are too, is, what is the water loss due to blue water's much older piping system? And if we do combine and go on all shared rates, and the other reason we were hesitant to go to the shared concept was also if there was a crisis in one of the water systems, would all three of them have to go on water restrictions? Right now, there was 2 years ago, not last summer, I think summer before last, a bit of a water shortage, and a notice was posted for King Edward and Blue Water, but there was no notice posted for Bowen Bay. So I think, certainly if you're asking Kristen for the opinion of the committee based on our discussions over the last couple of years, the committee has a very low appetite for blending our rates. And we hear the argument about, more efficient for finance, accounting, and all that good stuff. But the reality is there's always going to be different rates across the island of Bowen. And with our lovely computer systems, really whether there's a slightly different structure from home to home, or sorry, from zone to zone, I don't see that being an overwhelming cost to process a maximum of X gallons in one neighborhood. If you go over that, you get charged extra, whereas in another neighborhood, you might have a higher maximum. So I think that's really what we're trying to protect right now, is our base rate of 7,200 gallons. Whereas it's pretty clear Blue Water wants to go to a much lower base rate.
Theirs was
And,
much lower in history, John.
Sorry?
Theirs was much lower when
Okay.
it was when we started talking about all of this years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so I spoke. What do you think, Graham, Terrence, or Al?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I really don't want to see less water for Bowen Bay.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen,
Obviously very biased because,
sorry.
go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I was just, Kristen had mentioned that Blue Water is looking to go to more of a metered system. Are they currently, a lot of the property is not metered in Blue Water?
No, they're all metered, and you all
Okay.
have the same hybrid base rate and then consumption in the summer. They are just taking it from a environmentally conscious perspective, and I guess being without the access to the supply. The message coming from Blue Water is that they would like to see the rate move more to a consumption-based rate. So
okay.
meter charges kicking in earlier, and more also, yes, that absolutely reduces consumption when you introduce metered rates, but it's also better matches user pay. I think that they like that concept too. So.
Okay.
And Allison, just if I could, in your presentation, you mentioned metered versus unmetered. So you might want to go back and look at your notes, because yeah, we're all metered.
Did I say metered versus unmetered, or connected versus unconnected?
I believe at
Connected
one
versus
point.
unconnected.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard metered versus unmetered, but because yeah, we have only the one unconnected. Okay, anyone else? Graham?
The bias that I have is that, obviously, my family, we were one of the originals on Arbutus Point, and sort of passed down through the generations was, the amount of work and money that, my grandparents and my parents, spent to get our wells up and running and properly maintained. And I think the perspective from our side is that, yeah, Blue Water didn't do that. Obviously, everyone has their own story and whatnot, but yeah, certainly back up, we say, John, obviously we have enough of our own water, for our own use. And yeah, I don't really see, I don't really agree in connecting up with King Edward Bay and as well with Blue Water. So.
Okay. So, Kristen, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it just gives me some more guidance as to the different options for meter rates that we could bring forth, and the committees might decide to go their separate ways and elect different options. And if that's what they choose to do, then that's fine too.
Okay. Now, are you finished your presentation? Should we make comments on the other part?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay. Because my concern is the rate increase. Yeah, it's only, it's not a large amount of money, but it's still far higher than other increases. But it doesn't, as we gradually ramp it up, we know at some point Bowen Bay is going to have to spend in today's dollars, probably $2 or $3 million to upgrade our piping. Might be in 5 years, might be in 15 years. And at that time, there's probably going to be the same process you've gone through with Sug Cove and other where there's what is that process called where the municipality borrows money and then charges back the property owners over 20 years?
Long-term borrowing.
Long-term borrowing there. So I certainly see at some point in the future, we're going to be hit with long-term borrowing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's and putting aside a little bit per year isn't going to really even come close to covering the consultant costs whenever we do that. So, because the other avenue is to sort of keep the rates increases enough to cover current expense and current replacements, which frankly are pretty reasonable. And then such time as we suddenly see big jumps in costs, we then trigger the redesign and tendering and rebuilding. And then we go to long-term borrowing. And that way people, their monthly rate or their annual rate at that time might be, $1,500, and it might jump to $2,500, right? But whereas if we gradually ratcheted it up, collecting very little per year to $2,500, and suddenly has to go to $3,500, there's the screaming might be more. I don't know. So I realize, everyone wants to, set aside money for a rainy day, but I question the need to be ramping up just because we know there's a future big cost. And then the other one, a comment, I guess you had mentioned replacing the meters, and I think I made the same comment last year, is meter replacement may well make a great amount of sense is when the pipes are upgraded. Because suddenly you're going to go to large, I presume somehow the meters are going to be sized for the future upgraded pipe sizes. So they're bigger meters than we need today. And then
John, maybe Patrick, I think, was going to comment on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is really an initiative that carried over from a few years ago, and it kept getting pushed by other priorities. Generally, the idea was to look at having automated meter reading so that you don't have to have our utility staff going around on a regular basis reading meters. And so essentially there's life cycle cost argument there. It also provides sort of a lot more responsiveness in terms of identifying leaks where there might be leaks in the system when you have access to that information. So that was the rationale, and we never actually got to the point of identifying, well, what technology and process and costs would be involved here, and really what would the plan be. So that small amount in the budget for this year is really just to advance that work, determine whether there's a reasonable business case for it, what would make the most sense, and the actual replacement of the meters. I mean, that would be more like going to a different type of system. I agree. If we're just replacing meters, we would, when they break or they're deficient and they need to be replaced, you wouldn't just replace them without some other trigger, like a main upgrade.
Okay. Yeah. I think our one failure in our piping system of Bowen Bay last year was was a branch line off the main line on the hill up from Bowen Bay Beach. So, okay, but then I guess the question is, do we need the 40,000 a year to be showing in our budget if we're not going to spend it?
I think we're going to convert all the meters to remote read and ones where we can automatically bill from them, because it just makes sense with the technology and the amount of staff time to read meters. And it's much easier to find a leak. So, we need that money put aside. And then you've got just general repairs, like if you had to replace one of the tanks because it got a hole in it, or replace a broken pipe.
And I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, like what Patrick said is the actual meter changeover would only occur when one broke, or if and when we did the major pipe upgrade.
No,
then you're digging up the street.
Can't you change the meters, Patrick, to self-read without digging anything up? You just go into the meter box and change the meter.
Well, yeah. I think we're confusing things here. I think that this is the, if it's a $400,000 project across the island to switch over to remote read system, that may have to be phased. And I think Kristen just put it in sort of an amount per year. It may not be done that way. It may be that we do one system at a time, or that it's coordinated with some other capital projects, or it's phased in some other way. We really don't have a plan for this, and that's all that the 2022 money is to come up with a plan.
I see. Okay. So all the water systems are kicking in 40,000 each to come up with this plan. Is that right?
No.
It might depend on the number of meters you've got.
No. Where does the 40,000 come from?
Sorry, wasn't that, what was the line item in the budget? Did I miss it?
So the amount that has been set aside at the municipal level for coming up with a plan is 25,000. So that amount has been broken out on a pro rata share among all of the water systems. So,
I apologize. Okay.
Yeah, so Bowen Bay, you represent 4% of all utility systems. So you would get 4% of those costs. Although this one, that's when you include the sewer as one of the utilities, you have a little bit bigger percentage when we just have the water system. So meters wouldn't be something that we would attribute to sewer. It would just be a water expense.
Okay, so, and sorry, I don't have a copy in front of me because I guess it wasn't distributed. What is the line item in our budget then? Was it $4,000? Sorry.
Something.
It's in the capital budget.
It's
in the capital plan.
1,500.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have comments on the budget as presented?
Just to be clear, and I'm sure it is clear to everybody else, but this building up of a reserve fund has nothing to do with the future upgrades with respect to blue water, etc.
No.
No, all of the reserves are kept and accounted for separately.
Okay. And then just in terms of certainly like a $2 million pipe upgrade would require financing. If there are more reserves, there's more ability to respond to, if there was a section of pipe that needed to be replaced, that's $100,000 or $200,000. It's something that, you would want to be able to do without having to go to external financing for. It just provides a buffer, and it's some resiliency in your operation.
Mm-hmm.
So how old are your pipes, John? Well, maybe I should ask Graham. When did your grandparents build?
1969. Quite some time ago. I think it was 1970 though when they got the water, so it's quite some time ago.
Yeah, so those pipes are 30 years, 50 plus years old. Yeah. And I don't know, are they cast iron? Patrick, do you know what kind of pipe it is? I mean,
No.
they might have to be
No.
replaced anyhow in the near future, I guess is what I'm getting at. So the more reserve you've got, the better.
Okay,
Any other questions?
okay, then, hearing none, could you put it back up on the screen, what we're approving, the recommendation? And actually, we'll hope a copy will be distributed to us. I'm sure next year we'll be meeting earlier in the year, and we'll hopefully get it the day or so or a day before we actually have to meet.
Yeah. Steph, do you have the draft recommendation?
Yeah,
Is it
but-
part of the agenda?
It is. What are you saying you haven't received, John?
Well, I need we're asking everyone to vote on the finance recommendation, and I just wanted what we're recommending, the budget, to be on the screen. as we
Okay,
do
so
it.
it's in the agenda.
On page 8.
I couldn't find it actually attached to the agenda, but anyway.
Did you open up the PDF file and just scroll down the pages?
Well, I got the minutes, I got a bunch of council reports. I found an old, but for whatever reason, I didn't get the actual.
It's item 6.1A. It's called Bowen Bay Water System Draft 5-Year Financial Plan. 6.1A.
Yeah, and in my agenda it says to be provided as a late item.
Oh, you didn't open up the email you got yesterday or today?
Sent to revised.
That was this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let
Sorry,
me,
I didn't get the one this morning. Okay, there we go. Gee, I went
Some of
through
the
them
links-
all. Darn it.
Some of the links didn't work because I couldn't open several of them.
I can share it. Okay.
Those little red lines on that one, it was a PDF, so you had to keep scrolling.
Oh, there we are. Okay, thank you. I apologize. I found it.
We're
Darn it.
sorry for the late. I tried to explain in the email about the provincial deadline. It's crunching up against new CFO, so it's been very rushed and we're sorry it's last minute.
Okay, so we're to vote on this essentially.
That's the whole meal deal on the screen.
Yeah, the whole meal. And so we're to vote essentially on a 12% increase over last year.
2022 is in at 13.4.
Right, okay. Okay. And then it goes to 12 and 23 and 10 and 12 and 10. Okay. Okay, so we have a recommendation attached to the minutes. Would someone like to move that recommendation?
Terrence, do you want to move it? Al?
I move that.
Okay, and then a seconder. Okay, thanks, Graham. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, the vote,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item is new business or other business. Is there any other business that committee members would like to bring forward?
I was just looking through my binder, which is getting very thick. And I found there's a CREAS report that was done. It's a number of years old now. It was back in 2017 that laid out the possible plans for enlarging your water mains so they'd be adequate for fire flow. So it would, there's a start there for, something to go on to, get them recosted.
Yeah, and I recall, I think, as I said, my first meeting was in 2019. And I think at that time, the cost was discussed in the order of 1.5 million, 1.3 to 1.5 million to.
Well, that's reservoir and pipe upgrade is
Yeah, as per the CREAS report.
Yeah.
And then that's why, unfortunately, we've all seen quite a dramatic increase in costs. over the last 3 years. And so that's why I had jumped it to 2.5. Just, but you're really until Patrick gets someone to design a thing and we tender it, we really don't know. And then also the MOU will help us inform the design, because a lot of the design, if we do manage to reach an MOU and do manage to reach consensus on interconnecting the systems, then that changes the design as well. And because part of the interconnection cost includes a new, I think, 8-inch water main running from Bowen Bay to King Edward and then through to Blue Water, so that all 3 systems the water can flow in different directions. And so that 8-inch water main would have been part of that CREAS report. In order to have larger water mains just within Bowen, you would have needed that anyway. And that's a bit what we're all wrangling with now, is even Blue Water would need a big, upgrade to part of their water main system. And then the question then becomes, well, if you got to finding contractors to do this work and get it done, do you just go ahead and do the whole lot? But so there's another discussion. Anything else?
I guess the other thing on the financing of it is, hearing from other, having traveled around the Islands Trust and stuff like that, when you get the coverage for firefighting through FUSH, your household insurance goes down significantly. And in some communities, that has paid for the cost of financing the upgrade. It's a quid pro quo. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that has been mentioned, and I think even Terrence did some costing on that himself last year. But unfortunately, until we can cost it and actually say to people what is the extra cost, and then there's, as you've been through it, is all the big discussion before you can have a vote. That certainly will be one of the factors, and I agree with you. It's an important thing. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then the really exciting part is the question period from the members of the public, of which there are none. I think at this point, no one's joined us.
Nobody's joined us.
And then are there any other information items that you would like to share? We have listed a number of them: the island plan, the various reports and water rates bylaws, etc. Certainly like to acknowledge there's a member resignation. Patricia North served the committee for a long time, and she was thanked by council resolution. So there's that in there. And then there's the 2021 Island Survey. Any other items or comments? No? And then the next meeting, we hope, since things will be so organized and running smoothly, is this meeting we hope will be next December. And then we hope sometime this summer there might be a general information meeting of all the water systems to talk about the MOU and next steps. And having said that, I guess I could have a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Oh, so moved.
Oh, thank you, Terrence. Thank you, Al. And the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Right.
Thanks.